Wala, hindi ko pinindot yun. Wala eh. May nakakontrol dyan. Papindot naman. Sa taas. Wala. Okay. 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 Konting paliwanag lang, pinagmamalaki yung exports natin. Pinagmamalaki yung high-tech manufactured exports natin. Totoo. If you look at World Bank data, yung Philippines has the most share of high-tech exports among countries in the region. Mas mataas pa even sa Singapore. Halos, makita dyan dun sa upper left-hand side, over 2/3 ng exports natin considered high-tech. Anong problema doon? Walang problema sana kung nag-export ka ng high-tech exports, kung tayo nagpo-produce. But we have 2/3 of our exports, manufactured exports are high-tech, pero wala naman high-tech Filipino firms. Ano ibig sabihin yan? Yung inuulat natin, yung tinatalo natin ng exports natin at pinagmamalaki na high-tech exports, they're not actually produced by Filipinos. They're produced by foreign firms naka-base sa Pilipinas in enclaves, in special economic zone enclaves. Why is that a problem? It's a problem kasi may illusion na we're exporting high-tech, may illusion na manufactured exporters tayo. 81% actually ng exports natin ay manufactured goods. Pero kung hindi Pilipino nag-manufacture niyan, it means yung benefits from producing and selling and exporting hindi na pupunta sa Pilipinas or sa ekonomiya ng Pilipinas. Which also explains why, despite supposed high exports, because a lot of those exports are import-intensive, left side, ito yung trade deficits ng Pilipinas. Sa food trade to, we're not able to produce enough food, kaya nag-increase yung agricultural trade deficit. Because not producing enough food, habang lumalaking population, from blue to orange, lumakaba yung kita natin, habang malaking kinokonsumo natin, it means mababang savings natin. Because most of what we're goes to consumption, there's not enough savings. That explains why ang baba-baba ng savings rate ng Pilipinas, even among the region. So not producing, importing too much, not earning, therefore mababang savings, ang naging particular saver ng ekonomiya ng Pilipinas over the last 30 years is yung overseas remittances. So totoo naman, ang laki ng tulong ng overseas workers, hindi lang sa kanilang pamilya, even sa remittances, ang pampuno dyan, increasing foreign debt. Not yet a problem now, but creates vulnerabilities dun sa future kasi lalo tayo magiging vulnerable to not be able to make those repayments. Lalo na kung humina pa yung remittances with any anti-migration sentiments or what have you around the world. I think important conclusion lang, after all those years of globalization, these are like employment shares by industry sa Philippines. 3/5 ng ating employment is in services. Only about 1/3 are in production, meaning manufacturing and agriculture. And that's how backward the Philippine economy is. Yung ratio na different results, unfortunately and very, very sadly, yung pinagmamalaking Philippine Development Plan 2023-2028, walang pinag-iba doon sa nakarang 11 development plans. So, is there any reason to expect that Philippine agriculture will develop? Is there any reason to expect Philippine industry will develop? Is there any reason to expect more jobs will be created na quality? Is there any reason to expect poverty will be resolved, hunger will be resolved? Kung walang pagbabago, and I want to highlight two particular things sa problems dun sa free market economics na yan. One, it's so naive. Parang wala na ngang bansa anywhere in the world that develop using free market economics, pero yun pa yung pinapatupad natin ngayon. As if the market will deliver development. That's proven wrong anywhere in the world. That's clearly proven wrong sa Pilipinas, but for some odd reason, inuulit pa rin siya dun sa Philippine Development Plan. Second big problem, I know we're all cynical about the government, but if the market won't deliver development, the government has to step in to deliver development. Ang problema, the government is stepping in not to develop the national economy, the government is stepping in to make those already rich even richer. And a good example of that happening is yung Build and Build Better More na infrastructure program. The chart on the left shows in distribution per region ng infrastructure spending. The chart on the right shows poverty incidence. Yung napapansin kayo, parang jigsaw puzzle. Yung pinakamaraming infrastructure spending nasa NCR, Central Luzon, Southern Tagalog, which are also the 3 regions with the least poverty incidence in the country. Bakit siya ganyan? Simply because yung infrastructure is being spent not to develop the country. Infrastructure is being spent where it's going to make money and help support foreign investment especially. NCR, CL, and ST are the regions kung saan concentrate the most foreign investment in mga special economic zones. They're the ones who need better transport infrastructure para hindi sila ma-traffic, para they can move their goods back and forth between economic zones or between the zones in the mga Clark Airport or Subic Bay or North Harbor. So, infrastructure is being spent not to develop the country, but to support the profits of foreign corporations, including whatever Filipino firms are there. And I think ito yung pinaka-problem dyan. If 2/3 of infrastructure spending is going to where it's needed least, the flip side of that is those who need the most aren't getting the infrastructure they need. So sa amin, that's so important kasi nakasilaw palagi infrastructure. It's so wonderful to see nicer roads, nicer bridges, nicer subways. But ang bottom line, if the government had 9.6 trillion pesos to spend, tama ba to spend it to make corporations even richer? Tama ba to put it in the areas that need it the least? Siyempre hindi. And I think that's our main point about infrastructure. It's not going where it should be going. And as an example of wag tayong masilo sa infrastructure, the blue bar show infrastructure spending since 2013. Lumaki from about 300 billion pesos per year to 1.3 trillion pesos as of last year. Very noticeable. Halos quadruple ang infrastructure spending, halos dumoble siya as a share of GDP, the economy. But also, surprisingly, over this period, bumagsak ang agriculture as a share of GDP, bumagsak ang manufacturing as a share of GDP. Bakit? Simply because more infrastructure does not develop automatically agriculture industry. For that, you need much larger economic policies. To some degree, tinanggap ng administration may problem, kaya may ayuda programs siya. I know minsan may mga aversion to ayuda, but para sa amin, it's the lesser of two evils. It's the lesser of two evils kasi we don't want to create an economy, a people, a public dependent on ayuda. We also don't want politicians to manipulate ayuda for patronage purposes for elections. So it's evil in that sense. But tingin ko, personally, it's a lesser evil kasi nangangailangan yung mga tao. Kung nangangailangan yung mga tao, tama lang, nabigyan sila ng ayuda. Ang question ay, magbigay ba ng ayuda o hindi? Hindi yon. Ang question, anong bang dapat gawin para hindi na kailangan magbigay ng ayuda, para hindi exploit for patronage purposes, para hindi gamitin para maging dependent yung mga tao sa mga politiko. So on one hand, it's irritating na lumaki yung ayuda because the administration is playing its game for the 2025 elections. But on the other hand, nangangailangan talaga yung napakaraming Pilipino. Last point, and I think very important to stress, yung first Marcos administration was notorious for debt-driven spending, was notorious for infrastructure spending, but also notorious for corruption and not developing the economy. We're kind of seeing echoes of that right now because by any metric used, the Marcos administration right now is borrowing more than previous administrations. On a monthly basis, borrowing roughly 205 billion pesos. That's almost double, 1.5 times what Duterte was borrowing. And remember, Duterte borrowed a lot because sinabda ng economy, bumagsak ang revenues, kinailangan niya punuan, not for COVID spending, kinailangan niya punuan yung national coffers to keep supporting infrastructure projects which weren't even really benefiting from. And I think that's a problem we'll be facing in the future, which we're already starting to face now. More and more of our revenues are going to debt service. Less and less of our revenues are going to deliver social and economic services. So right now, hindi pa naman tayo critical situation dyan, pero magkakaroon tayo ng vicious spiral dyan. If the economy slows, revenues will slow, pero hindi naman mababawasan ng debt payments at ayaw nila bawasan ng infrastructure spending. Ang problema dyan, in the end, ang may ipid dyan, yung social and economic services we need. To kind of wrap up, may mga pwede namang gawin talaga. But it's actually quite straightforward what should be done. Well, una, learn from yung mga problems natin. Yung main problem talaga was thinking the market will deliver development. Yung main problem is equating corporate profits and personal wealth with national economic development. So sa amin, may 3 things na kailangan gawin para ma-rectify yung ganong klaseng problem. First thing, kailangan tanggapin, nag-iba na yung mundo. The chart on the left shows global trade, nag-flatten out na siya. The chart on the right shows global foreign investments, hindi na siya nag-flatten out, nag-decline talaga siya. So we want to stress that point because if even the United Nations says may problema sa trade and investment, doesn't it sound weird? The Philippine government aasa pa rin, no, our saviors will be the global economy, our saviors will be foreign investment. So sa amin, that's one important premise, kilalanin yung current context, bumabagal na actually yung mundo, humihina, at maraming actually domestic measures na pwede gawin. Hinahin na rin namin 2-3 things. Yung pinaka-simple sabihin, which is that the government is relying on, yung infrastructure, mga generic measures. Totoong kailangan siya, all the connectivity, all the mga infrastructure for water resource management, like flood